At T-Mobile, our critical mission is providing unparalleled 5G coverage for when connectivity is mission critical. Introducing T-Priority, America's best 5G network experience for first responders, even in times of congestion. More capacity, faster speeds, better coverage. T-Priority from T-Mobile, built for tomorrow's emergencies, ready today. Discover more at t-priority.com.
For qualifying organizations on eligible rate plans, coverage not available in some areas and may be impacted by emergencies.
Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore. I am a food truck business coach and author of Food Truck 101 Beginner to Winner. This podcast is all about helping you start and grow your food truck business. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about getting a minimum set up for the different types of revenue streams. Today, I'm going to talk about the minimum for a catering. So just a real quick reminder, the break-even point also includes a little salary for you as well as a little bit of profit for your business. That's the daily portion of each of those. And then, of course, all the other bills are paid as well for the break-even point. So the break-even point is your minimum goal. That becomes your minimum you're going to agree to. So let's get into the details for catering. When you're approached to do a catering, the very first number you need is a head count. Nothing else can be figured without that head count. So if the host is unsure, you need to explain to them, in order for you to give an accurate price, they have to give the maximum attendance expected. If fewer people attend, that does not change the price. But more people attending, you will be adding a per plate head count price. So if you price it out to be $30 a head and 2 extra people show up, then they have to pay you an additional $60. Put pressure on the client to give you a head count, because all of your estimates and all of your purchases are dependent upon that head count. So once you got a head count, you can start figuring your expenses. You want to cost out the per plate cost of your food, and then you want to add 10% to cover any party crashers or people that just want seconds, for instance. Your goal is to not run out of food. If you run out of food, you look like an amateur, and you destroy any chance at getting more catering gigs from that crowd that you're serving. So if there's 200 people in this catering gig, odds are a handful of them may need catering services in the near future. And if they're impressed by what you do, they'll remember you. But if they're not impressed because you ran out of food, they ain't calling you. Once you've got the head count and once you figured out your food per plate, you still got some more figuring to do. You got to figure out the realistic prep time. And I'm talking prep time, not cooking time. So we're talking about cutting the vegetables and prepping meats, making recipes, those kind of things. Prep work to get you ready to go out and cook. When you're doing estimates of this nature, at first it'll seem kind of awkward, but eventually you'll get to be a pro at doing this the more opportunities you had to do the figuring. But just think realistically, it takes, 1 hour to cut 50 pounds of onions, or it takes 22 minutes to go through a case of lettuce and prep it for salads. You need to be thinking how much real time is going to be going into the prep work. Next, you want to figure your travel charges and do that per mile. So if you're going to be having to deliver the food or cook the food 22 miles away, that's 44 miles round trip. You want to figure up that travel charge. And I'm not looking at you charging them $10 a mile. I'm looking at the travel charges in realistic terms, what it costs you. You should know the miles per gallon of your vehicle, and you should know how much gasoline costs, and do the math that way. We're not looking to do any profit yet. All we want to know is how much it costs you. Then you want to add in the physical setup time, and then the wages for that setup time. Then you want to think about the cooking and serving time. How long will it take to cook? How long will it take to serve? Remember, once you've served, you got to clean up and you got to tear down. So you're doing all of those different hourly wages in realistic time. Everything you figured to this point should be exactly what you will spend. Keep that in mind, exactly what you will spend. Now, if they need you to rent stuff, you're going to just pass that cost along to them as well. So if you have to rent $400 worth of tables and tablecloths and chairs and that kind of thing, you want to pass that along to them. We want to know exactly how much this costs you. We're not worried about profit yet. We want to know what it costs you. And then one more thing you got to add in. If this catering is big enough to where it will take up your full business day and you will not be setting up as you normally would, you've got to add in your daily fixed cost. That's part of your break even. The daily fixed costs are that particular day's portion of your insurance, your cell phone, your commissary, your loan payments, your rent, basically bills that have to be paid whether you're open or whether you're closed. That's what a fixed cost is. That needs to be rolled in. That daily number needs to be rolled in to what you're going to spend on this particular catering. So when you add up all of that, this gives you the catering cost to you. There's no profit here. That is the amount of money it will cost you to perform this catering. You cannot negotiate that total because every single thing is a true expense. And you're paying that to somebody else, whether it's your employees and wages, or the grocery store when you buy the food, or the rental company when you rent the stuff, or again, the cell phone and the insurance and all those other things I mentioned. You can't negotiate that number. But remember, you've only accounted for expenses. Here's where you can be a little bit flexible. You can put in whatever amount of profit you want to make. If you look at the grand total and you want to make $2,000 on this, you can say, I want $2,000 above whatever the expenses were. So let's just go through a catering just real quick. Talk about all those things that I just listed. So somebody comes up to you and says, hey, I got 100 people. I want you to cater for me in 2 months down the road. You say, no problem. You're going to get back to them within the next day and say, here's what I found. I need to have $800 in food, and that's going to cover all of the guests. And then you are going to also have bumped that number up 10% just in case. So the $800 covers the 100 people plus 10% extra. And you figure you're going to need about 13 hours to cover the prep, the setup, the serving, the cooking, the cleaning. And that's going to be about, let's say, $200. So you have 800 in food, 200 in labor. The host says, hey, I need a tent, but I got tables and chairs, so you just need to give me a tent for everybody to sit underneath. You say, no problem. You find out that's going to cost you about $400 to rent. And then you're going to include about $100 or whatever your daily fixed cost is. So we're going to say it's $100. So you add all that stuff up I just mentioned, you're at $1,500. Now we're going to add in the two numbers that you can negotiate. One is profit, one is gratuity. Because you got to have that $1,500 or there's no point in taking the job. And really at this point, you don't want to take the job anyway because you're not making anything. The only people getting paid are your employees. So now you're going to add in whatever profit you want. Let's say you want $1,500 in profit. And when you add the 18% gratuity or whatever percentage you want to charge, you give the grand total of $35.40. Or looking at it as a head count, it's $35.40 per plate. So if 2 extra people show up, you're going to charge another $70.80. So you have the catering estimate. You're going to say, here you go. It's $35.40 a head, grand total of $3,540. Now, if the host says, whoa, $3,540 is way too much, the only numbers you can negotiate is your profit or your staff gratuity. Because remember, when you change the profit, that's coming out of your pocket. That's coming out of your wallet. And of course, that's your decision, but you got to understand you're giving the money out of your wallet, out of your bank account. And if you can live with that, that's awesome. But that's where the only two things you can negotiate, your profit and then the gratuity you're going to give to your staff. So that's how to do a catering. So the minimum for the catering is adding up all those numbers together, and then whatever your profit is, that's your minimum. And the only thing you can negotiate, again, your profit, your gratuity. So tomorrow we're going to talk about event minimums that are paid to you and then event fees that you might have to pay. Thank you guys so much for listening to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. If you're finding all the information useful to your business, please become a monthly supporter of the podcast. Just hit the support button or follow the link in the description. Every little bit does help keep us going. If you like being around like-minded positive people, you will find no better place on Facebook than our group. It's called Food Truck Training. We got a whole bunch of awesome members at all different levels, from just brand new starting beginners to decades-old veterans. And again, thank you so much for listening. Come back tomorrow because I got plenty more to say when it comes to helping you and your food truck business grow.